I was halfway through cleaning out my garage when I heard the crunch of gravel and the screech of brakes. Two black SUVs parked across my driveway, like some kind of tactical standoff. Out stepped two men in black polos with Neighborhood Safety Division stitched on the sleeves and badges clipped to their belts, badges I'd never seen before. And behind them, waddling like she was the star of her own bad TV show, was Karen Atwood, the HOA president nobody elected but everyone feared. She pointed her finger straight at me, her voice shrill and full of self-importance. That's him. That's the one. Property Code 17.2. Violation of perimeter decorum and unsafe storage. I stared at her like she was speaking in tongues. The guy on the left stepped forward. Sir, I'm Officer Daniels with the Regional Enforcement Task Group. You're in violation of community codes. We need you to come with us for questioning. I almost laughed. Regional what? RETG, he said, dead serious, like it was supposed to mean something. We operate under emergency HOA jurisdiction. That's when I saw it. The patch on the other guy's vest was crooked. Their boots were military surplus, not standard issue. And that badge? It had an American flag and an eagle. But no department name, no state seal, nothing. My gut twisted, but my training kicked in. I knew fake lawmen when I saw them. I used to be an officer. A real one. 20 years with the state patrol before I retired to this quiet cul-de-sac with my dog and my tools, and what I thought was peace. Until Karen moved in last year with her binders full of rules and her obsession with power. Ma'am, I said, turning to her calmly, you've trespassed before. I've warned you not to harass me. Karen scoffed. You're not above the law, Mr. Hendricks. Just because you used to be one of them doesn't mean you can store gasoline in your shed or fly that political flag. The flag? It was a thin blue line memorial flag. For my partner, who died in the line of duty. The fake cop moved to grab my arm. That's when I stepped back and tapped the Bluetooth on my wrist. My security system had already flagged the SUV plates as unknown. A silent alarm was sent. I knew who would see it first, me niece, Chief Mariah Hendricks, head of the city's police department. Don't touch me, I said flatly. You're not law enforcement. He smirked. You gonna resist? We have the authority. Karen stepped closer, arms folded like she was Queen H.O. We've documented every infraction. The noise violations, the smell of oil from your tools, the unpermitted tool cabinet. And today, Mr. Hendricks, we're seizing your shed for inspection. That's when I heard the sirens. Fast, clipped, tactical, not bluff. 3 patrol cars swept in, engines growling. 1 unmarked SUV came up the rear, smooth and quiet. Out stepped Mariah, sunglasses low on her nose, face unreadable. She looked like a storm in human form. Mariah didn't yell. She didn't threaten. She walked straight up to the 2 men and said, badges. Now. The first guy hesitated, then held his out like it meant something. She snatched it, studied it, her brow raised. This isn't a badge. It's a novelty ID from an online costume store. The second guy tried to walk. One of the officers blocked him. Karen's face began to pale. Mariah turned to her. Ms. Atwood, are you aware that impersonating a law enforcement officer is a felony? Karen blinked like a deer in headlights. 2 didn't impersonate anyone. They're part of my HOA's security task force. We're authorized. Authorized by whom? Our own safety committee. Mariah's lip curled into something close to amusement and disgust. That's not how any of this works. I stood back as they cuffed both men and placed them in separate cruisers. Karen started to shake, her voice cracking. You can't arrest me. I didn't impersonate anyone. I'm just trying to keep the neighborhood safe from people like him. Mariah turned, slowly. From a retired officer? From a man fixing his tools in his own garage. You brought 2 armed men onto his property under false authority. That's not keeping anyone safe. That's domestic intimidation. Karen tried to backpedal. I didn't know they weren't real. They had documents. I have emails. Then you just admitted you directed the entire operation, Mariah said calmly. Karen's knees buckled. They didn't cuff her yet. But they did escort her to the back of a cruiser, where she sat, red-faced, deflated, whispering to herself. The next week, the local paper ran the headline. Fake HOA cops arrested in standoff. Chief's uncle targeted. It went viral. People across the country chimed in, some laughing, some horrified. But the real chaos had only just begun. Because when the investigation kicked in, What they uncovered was far bigger than a rogue HOA president with a god complex. Karen had been working with other self-appointed HOA leaders across the state. They'd created what they called the Citizens Property Enforcement League, a made-up authority group with fake uniforms, recycled patrol cars, and a website that looked official but had no legal backing. They used it to harass, fine, and even seize property from homeowners who either didn't fall in line or had something valuable worth taking. Turns out, Karen didn't want my shed because it violated a rule. She wanted the tools inside. Vintage. Custom-made. Worth thousands. She was building her own restoration business, according to posts on her private Facebook group. But she didn't buy her equipment. She took it from neighbors she fined into submission or bullied until they moved. And this time, she picked the wrong target. After the arrests, the neighborhood was buzzing. Folks who had never dared speak up now whispered in clumps at mailboxes and cul-de-sacs. The HOA board tried to distance themselves from Karen, claiming she had acted independently, but the truth was already unraveling and the web was deeper than any of us realized. Mariah and her team executed a search warrant on Karen's house the following morning. Inside, dozens of printed fake citations, violation of aesthetic conformity, improper garage alignment, unpermitted grass coloration. The language was absurd, but what wasn't absurd were the signatures. Forged names of board members, notarized stamps bought online, even a fake HOA marshal seal. But what hit hardest wasn't what was printed, it was what was stolen. In a locked room at the back of Karen's house, police found items labeled with sticky notes. For auction. Keep for booth. Gift to mayor. My tools were there. But so were a neighbor's heirloom bikes, an antique table Becca Franklin reported stolen last summer, and an entire set of military challenge coins that had belonged to Mr. Price down the street, gone missing months ago after Karen fined him for overgrown ivy. It wasn't an HOA anymore. It was a criminal operation disguised as suburban order. Mariah called a town hall. Not in a school gym. Not in a church basement. Right there in the open, on the street in front of my house where the fake cops had parked just days before. The whole neighborhood showed up, folding chairs, lawn chairs, some just standing, arms crossed, jaws clenched. This time, they weren't scared. They were ready to listen. I need you all to understand what happened here, Mariah said, her voice firm but kind. This isn't just about Karen. It's about what we allowed. She created fear and used it to gain control. But fear only works when truth stays hidden. She opened a box of evidence. Photocopies of the fake HOA rules. Audio recordings from the patrol car interviews. Karen's digital receipts showing she paid one of the officers a monthly retainer through Venmolable as landscaping services. Then she did something no one expected. She handed the mic to me. I stepped forward, heart pounding in a way I hadn't felt since I retired. Not fear, something deeper. Anger wrapped in grief. Because I saw what she almost did to this neighborhood. To the place I had chosen for peace. I didn't move here to be a watchdog, I said. But when someone shows up pretending to be the law, threatening to take what's yours, weaponizing rules and fear to control you, don't have the luxury of looking away. I scanned their faces. Some embarrassed. Some relieved. Some just angry they hadn't noticed sooner. I don't care what kind of badge someone flashes, I continued. If it's not backed by the people, by law, by justice, it's just theater. And Karen? She put on a hell of a show. There was silence. Then applause. Then people started talking. One by one they shared. About citations they'd paid, but never received receipts for. About strange fines for fence colors and car wax. About home inspections that happened when they were at work. One man broke down crying because his daughter had hidden in her closet after one of the HOA patrols banged on their door, demanding access to the backyard for aesthetic review. We didn't just have a rogue HOA president. We had trauma. We had healing to do. Over the next few weeks, everything changed. Karen was officially charged with impersonating a public officer, conspiracy to commit fraud, unlawful search and seizure, grand theft, and a string of HOA-related racketeering charges. Her fake security firm? Dissolved. Her bank accounts? Frozen. Her little army of HOA marshals. Turned out most were under-the-table hires with criminal records, and they folded the second real law showed up. But here's the twist. During the investigation, Mariah found something bigger. Karen had been working with a larger organization called Civic Code Enforcers of America, unofficial group, masquerading as a national HOA oversight body. Their website was polished, their documents looked legitimate, and they provided compliance officers for private neighborhoods, all unlicensed, all untrained. Across the country, complaints were rising about fake citations, fines, and harassment tied to this group. And my case became the key. The FBI picked it up. A federal task force formed. The story broke nationwide. Fake HOA officers target veterans, seniors, and property scam. I was invited to testify before a congressional subcommittee on residential law abuse. Never thought I'd be back in a suit. But I was. And sitting next to me, Mariah, Chief Hendricks, my niece, my hero. I told them what happened. I showed the camera footage, the fake badge, the patch with no agency. I read Karen's words from the confrontation. We have the authority. Then I said what needed to be said. Authority without accountability is tyranny. And in this case, it wore a polyester polo and drove a Ford Escape. It was quiet in that room. Then the chairperson leaned forward. Thank you, Mr. Hendricks. You may have just helped change HOA law in America. The neighborhood? It rebuilt. We dissolved the HOA entirely. No replacement. Just community agreements. People repainted their fences wild colors. One guy turned his shed into a mini art gallery. Becca planted sunflowers that stretched over the sidewalk, and no one told her to cut them. And me? I rebuilt my garage. Tools lined the walls again. This time, with reinforced locks. Not because I feared another Karen, but because I knew what happens when power goes unchecked. I wasn't just a retired cop anymore. I was the guy who'd stood up, who said no, who refused to be intimidated by fake authority in a real uniform. The last I heard of Karen, she'd taken a plea deal. 5 years in prison. Restitution. Her name was stripped from every HOA document, every neighborhood record, every platform she'd once controlled. Her house was auctioned legally this time, and the proceeds split between the victims of her fines and seizures. Some people asked me if I felt sorry for her. No, because remorse isn't enough when you break people's peace. But I do hope she thinks about that day. About the sound of the real sirens. The real law. The real weight of justice. And I hope she finally understands, if you make a costume out of power, don't be shocked when someone rips off the mask. What would you have done if fake officers came for you? Should HOAs be allowed to form their own security forces? Share your thoughts. We want to hear from you.